Every wise man knows that Mexican women are famous for two things: their beauty and their susceptibility to charm. Watch this. Good evening. Let me guess. You drink tequila. Barman, 2 glasses of talisman. I'm about to wow you with a tequila experience that's going to take you back to your roots. When the talisman does tequila, we don't need salt, we don't need lemons. No fancy gimmicks. What you're about to taste is just the finest agave distilled to perfection. You know, just like your granddad used to make back in old Mexico.
But babe, I'm German.
Whatever.
I wanted to point out that I interviewed Mr. Ari Ben-Menashe. This is World Affairs Monthly, and I have on the line today Mr. Ryan Dawson. He's a famous journalist and author, filmmaker, and he's got impressive expertise in geopolitics and also in the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell espionage and blackmail operation conducted by Israeli intelligence services. And he's lived in Japan for about almost 20 years. He now lives in Korea, in the southern half. Of course, I think he might laugh when I say he might want to try out the north for a little while, but he's in the south. Ryan can be found on the net at ryandawson.org, and that's RYAN Dawson, DAWSON.org. He's a friend of Larry Johnson, and Larry Johnson's a friend of mine, so I came in contact with Ryan, and you know what, Ryan, it's great to talk to you, and I thought I'd just bring up 2 main topics, and I'm just going to give a little speech here. So the first one is the Epstein case, or call it whatever you want, and I wanted to point out that I interviewed Mr. Ari Ben-Menashe 3 times. It's in monitoringrisk.com. Right now. So if you put Menashe in the search engine, you'll find it. March 17th, 2021, March 29, 2021, March 8th, 2022. And he told me to be, put it in summary form here. He told me that Epstein and Maxwell was an Israeli military intelligence operation. He told me that. And now I have his mobile number, and I talked to him from time to time, but he's been reluctant to do a 4th interview. I think it's probably because they threatened to kill him, probably. Now, okay, so I believe that Trump is actually Israeli intelligence. I have some evidence of that, a little bit. I think he met Maxwell, mother and father, father and daughter in 1989 on Maxwell's boat in Paris, and I'm pretty sure of that. But back to Epstein. There's 3 possibilities, and you're the expert. You know a lot more than I do. But there's one possibility that Epstein was actually assassinated in the jail, and the second one is that he was exfiltrated from the jail and now lives in Israel, and the third is suicide. I tend to think that the second is likely, and that's mostly because this guy that witnessed the autopsy, Michael Baden or Baden, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He was he was kind of a shady character in New York City. Let me read you what it says here on Wikipedia. Baden was the chief medical examiner in New York City from 1978 to 1979, but was removed from his position by New York City Mayor Ed Koch after Koch received complaints about his work, including memos from District Attorney Robert Morgenthau and City Health Commissioner Renardo Ferrer, documenting their criticism of Baden for sloppy record keeping, poor judgment, and a lack of cooperation. Anyway, so it looks like he's not exactly reliable. And of course, he's Ashkenazi Jew from Russia. Okay. So the second topic is geopolitics. And I wanted to mention the possibility, just the possibility, that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is actually Israeli intelligence. His girlfriend apparently is a spokeswoman for Dennis Prager. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that Dennis Prager is Israeli intelligence. Okay, now it's your freedom now to you're going to go for it. Say whatever you want.
Okay. Well, first of all, Michael Bowden isn't just a witness at the autopsy. He did the second autopsy. Epstein had 2 autopsies.
I didn't know that.
He's buried next to his parents in Florida. His brother witnessed it. He's the one that had a second autopsy. That's not something anybody wanted to have because it was Michael's conclusion based on the broken bone in Epstein's neck and other evidence as a pathologist that he was murdered, that he could not have done those wounds self-inflicted.
Okay.
Secondly, I wouldn't listen to anything from Ed Koch. So, he's just as questionable as anyone else.
Yeah.
And that whole New York syndicate had a very good reason not to want to. Michael used to be called in as a pathologist for some cases brought before Judge Napolitano, who knows him personally and trusts him. I mean, he was a government guy, and Daddy's Ashkenazi, so what? I mean, that's not always.
Well, I brought it up. I mean,
when you mentioned about Trump being on Maxwell's vote, we should inform the audience that Robert Maxwell was an informant for the Mossad. He helped them catch Mordecai Vanunu, who told on them for their secret but not so secret nuclear weapons program.
Yeah. So you're saying
knew Maxwell before he knew Epstein. She knew everybody, seemingly. She's the daughter of a Mossad informant.
Right.
A man, the only 2 foreigners that I know of ever got the ace level funeral service where it was attended by the heads of Shin Bet and Mossad, full send off, and that was Robert Maxwell. The other was James Jesus Angleton. We all know what he did.
Yeah.
Like, why are you having a funeral for a foreign counterintelligence of CIA? Why? And then of course Robert was worked for the Sunday Times in the United Kingdom. He's not even in Israel, and yet they have a service for him and everything because he did such good work. And Maxwell, they brought in. Now Ari Menashe was talking about military intelligence, and that is true. That is where Epstein started. They tried to do this deal with Doug Lease on kind of gray market parts for fighter planes and stuff. He wasn't very good at it.
I see.
He got moved into the compromat department, for lack of better words, where with the kitty fiddling and the honey traps and the rest of it. Something that Robert Maxwell had also done. The method they caught Vanunu was by setting him up with a ginger honey trap. Scooped him up in Italy, kidnapped him, and put him in solitary confinement in Israel.
Yeah.
And so that was his niche. And they already had Epstein didn't create a network. He just entered a pre-existing network that they had. A lot of these art schools up in New York were all part of this ring anyway. Mm-hmm. And he was a high school teacher at a school where the head of the school was living with a student who couldn't pay her tuition.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and William Barr's dad was there. So it was already sketchy. And a lot of these schools were like that. And one of Epstein's niches before they set him up with Wexner was, we'll pay your tuition. Oh, you can't afford it? I'll help you go to college. He seldom ever did. And even though he could have easily paid for it, he had a lot of, he had billions from Les Wexner.
Yeah.
Les Wexner was straight out of the Sanborn Institute. He's like a second generation of these goons. Very old. He's in his 80s now. And he's been accused by his own employees of lecherous activities.
Really, yeah.
He put him on the Wexner Foundation, him being Epstein. He's a trustee. He didn't belong there. And then Ace Greenberg scoops Epstein up and brings him to Bear Stearns, and that gives him access to a lot of powerful people.
I see.
It's not because Epstein is some economic whiz kid or knew anything about anything like that.
Right.
He'd studied math a little bit. He'd dropped out of college studying physics. He could play piano. He had charm. He was a great con man.
Yeah.
But basically, they just gave him a job in there in the everything department, where he's like didn't really have a concrete role. He sort of taught him a little bit of everything, which was just giving him access to all the people at all the different departments, because his real job was to ensnare them for blackmail.
Okay. And of course, he liked young ladies.
Yes, he did, and he flirted with the high school girls when he was a teacher there.
Yeah.
And everyone knew this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
he would
he
go to the weird contests, the pageants, and all that stuff. And Trump was into that.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
all the rage, like the weirdo child pageants, where they dress up 6-year-olds and stuff.
Right.
Miss Teen, this and that. Trump would sponsor that stuff. Trump was into modeling agencies, period. He was, this is younger Trump, he would go after playmates and
Yeah.
models and things. And of course, Les Wexner owns Victoria's Secret. And then the number 3 guy in the Epstein ring, Jean-Luc Brunel, worked for MC Squared Models, which used to be called Karen Models, which was started in Tel Aviv, Israel. His branch was out of Paris, and they opened up one in Miami, one in New York. So he had access to models. And then at the time, Les Wexner is also the one that picked Mike Jeffries to run Abercrombie and Finch, which Wexner used to own.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Jeffries, as we all know now, is in his own little homosexual sex ring where they were shaving people's bodies and giving them enemas and all that nastiness. And the key thing about Abercrombie and Finch, though, is that gives you access to underage models, because they have, it's a clothing company for people who don't know.
Yeah.
They have a children's wear, and so you need children to model the clothing, and so that would give them an excuse and access to very young and underage people.
Okay.
Jeffries, as a homosexual, was more interested in the male children, but they did have the females. And Brunel and all these guys, they all knew each other, and that would include Jeffries' boyfriend, Matthew Smith, and another guy named James Jacobson, who was very prominent in the role of trafficking men. That's a different story. I don't know if you want to get into all that, but that, just to say, this is another Wexner company.
I see.
Trafficking people and using modeling as the kind of casting couch type of thing.
Sure.
Same thing. They do in the music industry and that they do in the acting industry. There is a casting couch.
Yeah,
There is you want to get this job?
Yeah.
Do this and that. Leverage rape, if you want to say.
Yeah, sure.
So Wexner, but Wexner puts him on, and the Wexner Foundation is not just some guy that owned clothing lines. Like, Wexner is a hardcore Zionist. They donated millions to Ehud Barak, for example, the former prime minister of Israel, who's an absolute butcher. I know how bad Netanyahu is, but listen, they're all Sharon, Barak, it doesn't matter. Like this, they're deeply disturbed society in Israel, and they kill children and the rest of it. And,
that's right.
And this guy visited Epstein in jail. The first time Epstein got arrested, he would only be there on Sundays. He got work leave for 6 days out of the week. And so if you're getting multiple visits from the prime minister, that means he's coming every week, which is the only time you're there.
Yeah.
He also visited him in his house. He's friends with the whole family, the whole syndicate. And that's odd. You know, prime minister of Israel and politician in Israel, and you're raising him millions of dollars. And that was through Reporty Carbine. It's a company that changed names, but they were doing that. And Wexner had always been a prominent Zionist. He was part of the ring when he was a young man with Rudolph Sonborn and Ted Kullak and those guys that were working for Ben Gurion at the time from the Jewish Agency that helped steal highly enriched uranium out of Apollo, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So isn't that something? Because see, these are the guys that stole them. This is how it comes full circle. They stole highly enriched uranium, which helped Israel get the bomb. And then Maxwell's dad tells on the whistleblower that told the world that Israel had the bomb.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that is something. Yeah. Now, so you would rule out the possibility that Epstein's alive in Israel?
He's dead. He had
he's
2
dead.
autopsies.
Okay.
There was no way they were going to let him live.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason they arrested him in the first place. Why would you even re-arrest him? Like, just leave him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He got arrested the second time because he got a little too John Gotti.
Okay, sure.
You know, it's called the underworld for a reason. You're not supposed to put the limelight on yourself.
Yeah.
And he was. And,
Okay, yeah.
you know, people were really talking about him a lot in 2018, 2019, because he just couldn't.
Yeah.
He was a trophy collector. He had screwed up. And, like, buddy, you're replaceable. They killed Maxwell, too. They pushed him off a boat when he tried to blackmail the blackmailers. You know, Epstein got too big for his britches. And really, you know, if you talk to, this is kind of like splitting hairs, but if you talk to the victims, they all uniformly say Maxwell was worse than Epstein.
Yeah,
and that sometimes Epstein would show a little tiny bit of remorse, but it was really, he was a front for Wexner, like he's doing his bidding.
Okay. Huh.
So that's why they got rid of him.
Now, what about this recent cover-up?
And I think the whole thing of like the pictures on the gurney, and they're like, look at his ear, like it's a corpse, it's supposed to look different. That stuff reminds me of like the 9/11 kooks that deny airplanes and stuff. Then they go, oh, he's alive and he's in Israel. What they're trying to do is make the Israel connection narrative look like kooky nonsense. And it's not. He absolutely was an asset of Israel. But saying he's still alive is like saying Israel did 9/11. By the way, there were no airplanes. Like, it's the old Nietzsche quote: "Never let a moron argue on your behalf." That's what they're doing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. To confuse everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
it's to confuse people, and it's to make that side look retarded.
Yeah. Sure. Now, what about Pam Bondi months ago saying, you know, I've got the file on my desk. And of course, you published on your website, and I saw that at sonar21.com, Larry Johnson's website, the list, the so-called list. And, you know, now.
Yeah, that's the actual list.
Yeah, the actual list, right.
100% she did not have that on her desk.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, what about this recent attempt to, you know, by the FBI and Department of Justice to say, well, really, there's nothing here. Let's move on.
Yeah, right when Netanyahu visits the United States for the third time, and he just said, get rid of it.
Hey, Substackers, to hear the rest of that, hit the subscribe button. It's only $6 a month or $50 for the year. You get 2 months off. And you can hear this and every other paywalled MP3 podcast or video. Yeah, I hate having to do that, but I have to do that. And I just got a big shine in my eye. First time using the patch. That'd be funny. You're going to have to go back to glasses, but this works well in the sun. So that interview goes on. It's almost 2 hours long, and I answered everything he asked me. And if you're on Substack, you know there are still lawsuits at play. There's one at least, which is still contending that he had co-conspirators and clients. Not all of them will have immunity from the sweetheart deal. And this is going to burn the Trump administration because they're saying he did it all by himself. Like everybody was trafficked only to him. The victims aren't saying that. And they're in the process right now still with these suits. And it's right out of the Virgin Islands. The same suits they tried to muddy the water with the Tate case when Denise George first initiated a suit against JP Morgan, which did result in a $75 million settlement. Deutsche Bank, same number, 75 million. And then there was an additional suit by the victims to JP Morgan, which resulted in a $290 million suit. And JP Morgan got mad, and so they countersued. And in the discovery in that, you find out how corrupt so many officials in the Virgin Islands were. Most of them weaseled out of it through either they were part of the initial sweetheart deal from Barry Kersher, where they got immunity for what they did, but you still got to see what they did. Even if they can't be punished for it, you get to see that there absolutely are clients and they were covering for them. And one of these people, and I'm going to be going over this on Judge Napolitano's show. Hallelujah. Some big shows finally asking about this. And I also went over this with Scott Ritter, but his recording will be on his Substack on Tuesday, and the judge's show is on Monday, I think. But, you know, Ritter's show is very long form, so I probably got to go over some stuff I won't get to say on the judge, so go over and see that. But they are saying
there's 151 women like that got trafficked through St. Thomas and to Jeffrey's Islands, plural. He had more than one island. The people are like saying the island shows the ignorance already. Like, you didn't really look at this case. You looked at stuff that someone else looked at who looked at the case. It wasn't just Little St. Jeffrey's. He also had an operation right out of St. Thomas itself. He had Greater St. James, Little St. James, and he ran the roost there. He knew the governors, the attorney generals, and when Denise George put in the lawsuit that got all this in motion, that's when they arrested Andrew and Tristan Tate, and all you saw about human trafficking when you try to Google it or look it up was that crap. And people, I promise you, they have not gone over the transcripts. They have not looked at those court cases, because if they did, their mind would be blown. I don't even think the FBI looked at it, because there's clearly fucking clients. And some of the internal emails, like between Jess Staley and Epstein, for example, where they're showing, communicating, and talking about servicing someone else, a banker in this case, that's one client right there. No, they're not going to look at it. They're bragging about what they did. But in the final plaintiff, who got him $300 million tax break, lets you know what Epstein's genius money laundering operation was. He didn't have any super secret ways with shell companies and all these complexities. He tried that crap with liquid funding and set up an office, Bear Stearns, Ireland. That's all real common stuff. It's not super slick. It's his Ponzi scheme at Tower Financial was something you could Google how to do a Ponzi scheme. It was really bad. They figured out why even bother with that when you can just bribe the tax collector or bribe the legislators that create the tax code. And he got $300 million in tax breaks for his companies. He also got the law changed about sex offenders in the Virgin Islands so that he could leave within 24 hours instead of having a 21-day notice. And so, it's basically like you've got a country. They could issue visas, and those visas are accepted in the United States. And so he would get visas for his girls from Europe. He was mostly pilfering from Ukraine and Romania, and he could get them there and get them visas. Sometimes he got them student visas. They weren't even old enough to go to college, but those things were produced. But everybody who was employed by him, because the sweeping immunity said anybody who worked for Epstein in any capacity is immune from prosecution. Well, they were able to do it. They even took a $50 million loan from him, from his New York bank, and they can't do anything about it. And they fucking know that $50 million is not for desk work or whatever. Like, it's greasing palms so he could get his way in the Virgin Islands, and he could do the same for his friends. So when he goes to Bill Gates or any of these super rich billionaires, what he could offer is, would you like to save hundreds of millions of dollars on your taxes? Because I have a way to make that go away, which is honey trapping the collectors. That's all that was. And he absolutely would bring people down to the islands, but mostly it was to Florida, New York, New Mexico, Paris, and Ohio, his other properties. And normally he didn't bring them to have massages on his own property. That's stupid. He would bring the girls to them. It was the other way around. And normally in neutral territory, hotels and whatnot, kind of like Robert Miller used to do. But now and then he would have his little island parties. And sometimes what Epstein would do is he would let it occur on his property while he wasn't there. So a lot of people had keys to Palm Beach, and they would go and do their thing. It was disgusting. Anyway, we're on BitChute, we're on Rumble, we're on X. We have Beep 1984 says 20 and says keep kicking ass. 2 Saudis, 1 cup for dollars. Like that says, is the Epstein stuff related to the Mark Dutroux? Not really. I mean, related in sickness and theme, I guess, but it isn't. There's no like concrete line between that. But dude, there's a lot of bullshit about Epstein. There's a lot of BS. I saw this happen 9/11, and I do not agree with the official story 9/11 at all. But what happened is like the official, unofficial story from the Alex Jones, Richard Gere, and Loose Change is even dumber. And you're seeing some really stupid stuff about like, the cop in Russia that had all these tapes. That was bull. I said that was bull for the whole time. He released like a still from a porn and tried to say, oh, this is a CEO. So it was crap, man. I don't know. Daryl Cooper is going to be going on Tucker to talk about Epstein, and I think he'll do a good job. I'm hoping to prep him if I can. And yeah, we got the Judge's show and Scott Ritter's show. I already did. It wasn't just on Epstein. It was mostly on just like, it was like fuck Israel stream is what it was. But there's a lot of Epstein stuff because that, they just gotten rid of the files. Like, I used to have the files on hand. I think I've packed them, but there's a lot of names right there on the wall. You can get that at Anti-Neocon here. Get a map. Well, I'm going to be writing about this a lot on Substack. It's just, I used to hide my power level because there's so many plagiarists who just steal my shit. But now that I have a Twitter with 295,000 followers, it's easier for me to put stuff out and have enough people who know that that's where it came from without like Whitney stealing it. So I'm going to start doing Epstein stuff again. And what you're going to see is the ball's going to roll again. As soon as I start doing it, you're going to get new information. Whereas it just sat for years with nothing new because I'm like, I ain't sharing this. This is why. They're just going to steal it. And no one listens. All they want is celebrity names. You sit there and say this person, this person, this person. Like, yeah, but what about Tom Hanks? And you know what that came from? It was QAnon. There was a Saturday Night Live skit of Tom Hanks at child pageants. He's making fun of like overzealous fathers that want their kid to win or whatever. It's an act. He's an actor. And they're like, look at Tom Hanks, like as if it was at a real pageant and stuff. It's just these people make idiocracy a prophecy. Like, what was it? The Brondo, which is clearly Mountain Dew. Like, yeah, he's got electrolytes. Like, that's the kind of people. Ouch, my balls. That's what we're dealing with. They're murdering people in Gaza every day. And, closet homosexuals like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, they're just all over it. They've been compromised. It's not just their eschatology where they're like, oh, I'm a Bible thumping retard. These dispensationalist Christian, if you want to, I can't even call them Christians. He's like fundamentalists, which I call fun a mental illness. Take the Old Testament literally, and they think they have to bless Israel. It's like, the whole concept of a new covenant and a New Testament must have been lost on you. Like, how many times did you actually go to Sunday school? I'm gonna go with 0. Like, that's the first thing. Like, why are there 2 testaments? Oh, because these covenants are all trash. Whatever. Let's look over at this. It would be better to shekel chat on entropy because I should have said this in the beginning, my fault, but Rumble will only pay you through PayPal now, which I am not allowed to use. And no, I cannot just put a friend or anything on it. I tried that and immediately they ban it. So what PayPal is doing is anything coming from my Rumble channel is immediately flagged and they lose their PayPal, which is kind of a weapon because I could send money to someone I hate and cause them to lose their PayPal. It's kind of but then I lose all the money that's sitting there. I'm trying to contact Rumble to see like how else can I get my money off here? I mean, how can you be the platform for free speech and all and then hook to fucking PayPal when they've banned anyone that's ever been critical of Israel? But Onishido, the white Oni, says, greetings, Ryan. I've been trying to spread your content, especially the pinned tweet, like wildfire. The eye patch is badass, by the way. Hope you won't need it too much longer, though. Yeah, I don't think I will, but I'm going to put Velcro on here so I can put like red triangle on there or a Houthi flag or whatever, Callie Tucker, trucker, man, see, can't see. Said, Ryan, was Jeffrey Epstein's involvement in the 2008 GFC? I don't know. What is GFC? Let me see what you're talking about. The Epstein story is so big that you're talking about again. I'm trying to say I can't be honest. Oh, Girls for Change? I don't know. Don't know that. I think he was spotted in the audience or something, but that's all I know about that. If I'm thinking of the right thing. Judge Nat McGregor, badass. Yes, they are. Vinny himself for 20 says at Vinny himself. And then he says it again for 25. All right, well, there's Vinny. Two Saudis, one cup says for a buck. Is that satanic ritual abuse shit associated with Mark real? Was there any MK Ultra stuff going on in the Epstein ring? No, I don't know what you think MK Ultra was. The mind control experiments and Sidney Godfrey and all that was a huge failure and waste of money. And they realized, as Epstein realized, it's far more reliable just to pay somebody than it is to try and control their mind. Like, you don't have to bribe someone. You don't have to clockwork orange somebody. You don't have to hypnotize somebody. You just give them $100,000 and they'll do whatever you want if they're poor. And if they're rich, you get them on tape banging a 14-year-old. And you're like, do what I say or I'm sending this to your wife. And then you lose 50% of your stuff. All right. Genius Level says, hey, Ryan, are there 9/11 links in the files? No. Callie Trucker says, what was Jeffrey Epstein's involvement with the Great Recession of 2008? Well, Jeffrey he couldn't control shit there. I mean, that was caused by mortgage-backed security fraud, which was done by a lot of Epstein clients. The donor class helped create that. And you can blame John McCain for a lot of that too. I did a video called Bailout Rape. I'm sure it's gone because they deleted all that stuff, but that explained the whole thing where there's no moral hazard because they were allowing people to sell subprime mortgages, but then they would sell the security to a third party. So it didn't matter whether those mortgages were collected or not. And it was like, we call it the Polish roll. It's a roll of $1 bills with a 20 on top. They called them subprime, but they were way below prime. And these are absolute crap. People with no paper, no collateral, no job were getting these huge loans, which created a giant credit bubble to buy a bunch of houses. And all the TV shows and stuff were like, you can fix up a house and flip it. And, you know, everyone's trying these get rich quick schemes where they thought they could buy a house, sit on it for 2 years to avoid capital gains tax, and then flip it for more money. You can't do that. And if a bunch of houses go on sale at once, then they compete with each other's prices and it brings the prices down and And then they were doing credit default swaps. So you could have multiple insurances on one property. And what happens if something happens to that property? You got to pay out not just to one, but to many. They had bribed the rating agencies to give AAA ratings to things that are absolute shit. And they emailed each other about that, saying, look at this piece of crap I just sold. So these rating agencies were giving the same rating they give to government bonds to homes that people absolutely could not pay for. Ninja loans, you know, they called them. No papers or anything. And it all came crashing down. And then the Fed also did these teaser rate ARMs that they changed 17 times. So they would get in at a low interest that would then suddenly surprise. They jacked it up over and over and over again to the point where people couldn't pay. So you had all these defaults. You had them all at the same time. So all of that was happening. And this did involve the very same banks, the very same individuals that Epstein was best friends with. But it's not something he sat there and organized. They did that on their own. And it's not unrelated to paying off the debt for this pointless Iraq wars, which Israel dragged us into too. It's why they had artificially low interest rates. And then they jacked it up again. The whole thing was a wealth transfer. And almost every bank participated in it. And then they got bailed out. Obama he took a stake in Citibank, for example. It was too big to fail. Government comes to the rescue. So, privatize the profits and make the debt public. So you all had to pay. You paid through inflation and you paid through people losing their homes. And then young people, like people just getting out of college that needed a house to actually live in, couldn't afford a home because the price had been expanded from the credit bubble. All these dumbasses buying homes with money they didn't have still made the price out of range for people who are responsible that would only buy a house and live within their means no longer could afford a house. So you have a whole generation of people in their 20s in 2008 that had to, live with each other as roommates and stuff like teenagers because all the housing was unaffordable. Then it all comes crashing down. That was the time to buy. All right. And then Obama offers a first-time buyer's tax credit, which often wasn't paid. So they got suckered into that. Oh, yeah, Devin Archer. You know why Devin Archer was pardoned. He was partners with Hunter Biden and Kerry's son, Hines, name, Chris Hines. Getting a call. All right, well, I'm going to hang up on that and listen. The longer stream is on Substack. You can get the maps right there or Hoodie or what have you. And RyanDawson.org. It's free. Just sub for free. And you can upgrade whenever or never. But there's that. And I'm going to answer that call that popped up on the screen. So we'll see you then. Peace. We're going to have an Iran update too. And I'm after the judges show, we will get Dan McAdams on eventually. It was going to be today, but a thing happened. But we will get him. All right. Peace. Get him back on. He's been on before. And Dr. Paul going to explain tariffs to you.